Right now, while you're sitting there completely convinced that you're awake and running the show, there's a part of you that has never, not once in your entire life, actually gone to sleep. Not tonight, not last night, not a single night since the day you were born. It doesn't nap, it doesn't take breaks, it doesn't clock out. And here's the part that's going to mess with you tonight. The second your body shuts down and your eyes roll back, this thing is going to get even busier than it is right now. Think about this. You will spend around a third of your entire life asleep. That's roughly 25 years. 25 years of lying there, unconscious, doing apparently nothing. And we've all been told the same cozy little bedtime story to explain it. You get tired, your brain switches off, you recharge like a phone plugged into the wall, and in the morning you're back to full, clean, simple, obvious. There's just one problem with that story. It's flat out wrong. And to understand why, we're not going to read you a textbook. We're going to do something Richard Feynman would have done. Take this whole idea apart down to the bare bones and rebuild it from first principles. Because Feynman had one rule he lived and breathed. He said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. So tonight, let's stop fooling ourselves about the thing we do every single night. Here's the trap almost everybody falls straight into, and you won't even notice you're in it. We use one single word, sleep, for two completely different things, and nobody ever stops to separate them. When you say I'm going to sleep, what actually happens to your body? Your muscles go limp, your heart rate drops, your breathing slows, you stop reacting to the world around you. Your body, in every way that counts, powers down. And then your brain just tags along for the ride and shuts down too, right? That's the assumption. That's the exact spot where everyone stops thinking. So let's not stop. Let's do the Feynman thing and ask the dumbest, most obvious question out loud. The one that feels almost too simple to bother with. When you fall asleep, does your brain actually turn off? Hold on to that question, because the honest answer is about to flip everything you thought was happening inside your skull every night of your life. Let's start where Feynman always started, with the raw, stripped-down numbers, no fluff attached. Your brain makes up about 2% of your body weight. 2%, a little 3-pound lump. But that tiny lump burns through roughly 20% of all the energy your entire body produces. It is, by a mile, the most expensive piece of hardware you own to keep running. Now look at that like an engineer for a second. If sleep were really about resting and saving energy, if the whole point was to conserve fuel overnight, then the brain would be the very first thing evolution shuts off. It's the biggest energy drain in the whole building. Cut its power for 8 hours, and you'd save a fortune in calories every single night. So here's the question that should genuinely be bugging you right now. If the brain is this massive energy hog, and sleep is supposedly all about conservation, why on earth does it keep the lights blazing all night long? Because it does keep them on. And when scientists finally strapped in and actually really looked, at what the brain gets up to while you're lying there unconscious, what they found looked like the exact opposite of resting. Rewind to the 1950s. Researchers hooked sleeping volunteers up to machines that read the brain's electrical activity, expecting to watch the graph slowly flatten out. Quiet, calm, winding down for the night. And for a while, that's exactly what they saw. The waves got slow and lazy, but then, a few times every single night, something completely insane happened. Out of nowhere, the sleeping brain suddenly lit up like it was wide awake in the middle of the day. Eyes darting back and forth underneath the closed lids. Brain waves that looked almost identical to a person solving a hard problem at noon. They named it REM sleep, and here's the line that breaks people. During REM, some regions of your sleeping brain are more active than they are when you're awake. Read that one more time. More active while you're asleep. So the obvious next question is the only one that matters. What in the world is it doing up there? This is where it gets good. Think about everything that hit you today. Every conversation, every face you passed. Every random fact you picked up. Every embarrassing thing you said and immediately regretted. All of it came flooding into your brain as raw, messy, unsorted data. And during the day, your brain doesn't have a spare second to file any of it, because it's too busy keeping you alive, upright, and not walking into traffic. So it waits. It waits until you go offline, until you finally stop shoving new information at it, and then it clocks in for the night shift. While you sleep, your brain replays the day at high speed, sorts through the pile, decides what actually matters, and then physically rewires itself. It strengthens the connections worth keeping, and quietly deletes the ones that aren't. That skill you practiced today, that thing you studied, that awkward new route to work, it gets locked in overnight while you're drooling on your pillow. That is not resting. That is a full-blown night shift running inside your head. But honestly, memory filing isn't even the wildest thing happening up there. Because in 2013, a scientist named Maiken Nedergaard stumbled onto something nobody saw coming. And once you hear it, you can't look at your own head the same way again. Here's the setup. Every organ in your body has a plumbing system to wash out its own garbage. Your muscles, your liver, your gut, all of it is wrapped in a drainage network that flushes out the waste your cells produce, because if that trash piles up, it turns toxic and it kills you. For the longest time, scientists just assumed the brain had one of these drainage systems too. It's the most important organ you've got, so obviously it has plumbing, except it doesn't. The brain has no traditional waste drainage system at all. So sit with the obvious, slightly terrifying question. A thinking brain produces a shocking amount of metabolic waste, including a sticky, gunky protein you might have heard of called beta amyloid. The exact same stuff that clogs up the brains of people with Alzheimer's. If there's no drain to flush it, then it should just build and build until it poisons you from the inside. But it doesn't. So how? Where does it all go? Here's what Nedergaard found, and it's the reason this whole video exists. At night, when you crash into deep sleep, the tiny gaps between your brain cells open up and widen by around 60%, creating channels that were basically closed while you were awake. And then fluid comes flooding through those channels and power washes your entire brain, flushing the toxic waste out with it. Your brain quite literally cleans itself overnight. It runs a wash cycle. And here's the kicker. It can only run that wash cycle properly while you're asleep. Trying to do it while you're awake and thinking would be like trying to deep clean a kitchen floor while a dozen people are sprinting across it. It needs everyone out of the room. So here comes the punchline, the whole thing in one sentence. Sleep is not when your brain shuts off. Sleep is when your brain finally gets the room to do the jobs it physically cannot do while you're busy being conscious. You don't sleep to rest your brain. Your brain uses your sleep to do its most important work of the day. And this is exactly why pulling an all-nighter wrecks you so badly. It's not just that you're tired, it's that the wash cycle never ran. The waste never got flushed. The memories never got filed. You skip the single most productive shift your brain runs all day. And then you wonder why your head feels like a fog machine the next morning. You're not just missing rest, you're missing the cleanup. So let's finish the Feynman experiment properly. All the way to the end. We asked one dumb, honest question. Does the brain turn off when you sleep? And instead of accepting the bedtime story, we followed the evidence wherever it went. Here's where it landed us. Take the electrical activity in your brain and switch it off completely. Flatten that graph to a dead, silent line. And you don't get sleep, you get death. A brain with zero activity is the literal medical definition of brain death, which means, by pure first principles, a sleeping brain cannot possibly be an off brain. It is a brain that never under any circumstances stops. When you sleep, your body rests. Your brain reorganizes. Those are two completely different events wearing the same four-letter word, and the moment you actually see that difference, I promise you can't unsee it. Let me make this real for a second. Think about the last time you were stuck on something, a decision you couldn't make, a bug in your code, an argument you couldn't untangle, and someone told you the oldest piece of advice on the planet, just sleep on it. And then somehow you woke up the next morning and the answer was just sitting there, obvious, waiting for you. That wasn't luck. That wasn't magic. That was your brain working the overnight shift while you were unconscious, quietly connecting dots you couldn't reach while you were awake and distracted. Sleep on it is real hard neuroscience that regular humans figured out thousands of years before anyone had a machine to prove it. So tonight, when you finally lie down and feel yourself drifting off, I want you to remember this. You are not shutting down. You are clocking out so that the single smartest part of you can finally clock in. Your body sleeps. You sleep. But that 3-pound universe sitting behind your eyes, it's just getting started for the night. If this genuinely rewired the way you think about your own head, do me one quick favor and tap that like button. It honestly helps this channel reach more curious people who want the real answer instead of the bedtime story. Subscribe if you want to keep questioning the stuff everyone else just accepts without checking, because that right there is the entire point of this place. And then drop me a comment. What's one obvious thing you've been told your whole life that you now want us to tear down from first principles? I read every single one of them. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.